Hello everybody, it's Tim here again, doing the movie review. I figured since I did the review for Venom, yes, I still plan on doing a review for The Wiz, which I've put off for a while now, but I kind of got the urge to watch some different stuff before I jump into The Wiz. I want to watch, well, I did watch the Spider-Man films. I wanted to review for the Spider-Man films because, well, they're popular. I haven't done them yet. I haven't really tapped into them other than Spider-Man Homecoming, which won't be a part of this because I did that for my MCU reviews. Now, Spider-Man Homecoming, I'll just say I thought was a good film, but not a great film. I'd give it 3 out of 4 for Spider-Man Homecoming. It's good. It changes a little bit too much from the comics that I don't really like. I don't like the new Mary Jane. The girl's pretty in Spider-Man Homecoming, and the character's fine. It's just not Mary Jane. It's like Mary Jane in name only. I don't care for it. Good film, and I don't like how Spider-Man is more like Iron Man's sidekick than his own hero for some of it. Good film, just not great. Now, for the rest of the Spider-Man films, Spider-Man 1 with Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi is a really weird choice to direct Spider-Man, but I gotta say, the dude does a good job. This movie is well directed. The score by, I believe, Danny Elfman is great. This is a great film. I'll just go ahead and say it. Spider-Man 1, 4 out of 4. You got William Dafoe as the bad guy. I think he does a great job. He's hilarious. Some people didn't like his costume. I was mostly fine with it. It could have been a little better. I don't know why they just didn't use like a standard costume, you know, like he kind of has in the comics. And like the old Fox Kids animated series. I don't know why they just didn't go with that. But it looks mostly fine. Tobey Maguire does a great job. His Spider-Man is pretty much like a nerd out of the 50s. He does a great job as Peter Parker, but he only does a good job as Spider-Man. Whenever he tries to deliver like one-liners, they are bad and fall flat. They do not work. Kristen Dunst's Mary Jane does a good job, but once again, this does not feel like Mary Jane to me. Mary Jane in the comics is like a Spitfire type girl. This chick's like really dowdy and whiny. She does a good job. Kristen Dunst does acting wise, but this is not the Mary Jane I wanted. James Franco does Harry Osborn, who eventually we'll know becomes the second Green Goblin. He does a really good job. William Dafoe is hilarious. Like he calls Tobey Maguire on the phone. Can Spider-Man come out and play? I laughed my butt off at that. The ending of the film when he's like trying to trick Spider-Man, he's like, "Godspeed, Spider-Man," and his glider comes flying towards Tobey Maguire, does like a backflip, and it hits him instead. That was cool. Of course, you get the scene where it sets up where James Franco thinks that Spider-Man killed his father. They carry this over into the second film, which I will also give 4 stars. Now, Spider-Man 2 is a lot of people consider their favorite over the first film. Personally, I think I enjoy watching the first film a little bit more, but this film, I will say, is better script-wise. Doc Ock is a better villain, better written villain than William Dafoe was as the Green Goblin in the first film, and his arms are really cool. The CGI is worse here, however. Like, there's some bad CGI in this film. But you get to the end, pretty much Doc Ock turns into a good guy because these 6-armed octopus things are like tapped into his brain and they're manipulating him. He ends up controlling them and stopping his experiment before it destroys the city. That was cool. Really sad ending for the character. All in all, it's a great sequel. At the end of it, you kind of get like an old throwback to, I believe it's like The Graduate or whatever, where it's like Kristen Dunst running in a wedding dress, which is pretty funny. It ends with them hooking up. Once again, Kristen Dunst and Mary Jane, I'm off and on. Now, with Spider-Man 3, this one is the worst by far of the Spider-Man flicks. I'd give it a 0 for Spider-Man 3. Now, anyone who knows the history of this film knows why it's so bad and why it doesn't work. Basically, this film was originally going to be like The Vulture and Sandman, or just Sandman, and the studio forced Sam Raimi to put in Venom by rewriting the script, and it just does not work. Venom is forced into the film. He has nothing to do, and when he is there, he's very boring. Topher Grace, I actually think, does a good, fine job as this version of Venom. I think it works for the film good enough. He's meant to be like an evil mirror image of Peter Parker instead of like the big buff bully version that we're used to. He works fine, but he's barely in the film and does nothing. Sandman has no conclusion to his arc. He's supposed to be trying to save his daughter from her sickness by getting money, and then at the end, he just flies away. You never even find out what happens to the daughter. It's really bad. And then Harry Osborn, played by James Franco or whatever, becomes the new Green Goblin, but he ends up turning good at the end and teaming up with Spider-Man, which is pretty cool, but the way he turns is not deserved. There's this magical butler who shows up, played by Bill Paxton's dad, who talks about how he knew all along that Harry's dad killed himself on accident because his wounds were from his own glider. It's like, why didn't you say this years ago? It does not work at all. Total 0 of a film. Just a terrible ending to the trilogy. The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, Amazing Spider-Man, if you sit there and compare it forever to the original Tobey Maguire one, it's only like a low 2-star passable film. But this film should not be compared to that film. It's its own thing. It's a reboot. It's not a continuation of that. This is its own universe. And for that, I think it's a 3-star film. It's good. It's standard. It's a little bit weaker than the Tom Holland Spider-Man Homecoming film. But it's not bad. It's a good standard flick. Andrew Garfield does okay. Well, does like a good new age Peter Parker skateboarder kid, but he does a great Spider-Man. I like his Spider-Man better than Tobey Maguire's, but not his Peter Parker's. He does the one-liners much better. The villain is the Lizard, played by Rhys Ifans, I think is how you say his name. The Lizard is an alright villain. They don't really do much with him, but the fight scenes he has with Spider-Man are pretty cool. I like the Spider-Man outfit in this. I think they changed it in Amazing Spider-Man 2. They should have kept it. I was fine with this outfit. One thing these movies do excel at is Gwen Stacy, played by, I forgot the actress's name. I can't believe it. But the girl who plays Gwen Stacy here anyway, but she was going out with Andrew Garfield. Emma Stone. She was going out with Andrew Garfield at the time. They have great chemistry, much better than the Mary Jane and Spider-Man relationship from the Raimi films. And they work as a team. It's really cool. And they just have much better chemistry. And she's just a much better character. She's not whiny and bitchy like Kristen Dunst was. She understands that Spider-Man has to go out and save people and that he's going to miss stuff. And she's fine with it. It totally works here. Much better than the Raimi films. She is great here. All in all, a good, solid Spider-Man film. Amazing Spider-Man 2, a lot of people hated this one when it came out. They were like, it's worse than Spider-Man 3. Even though the IMDb rating is much higher than Spider-Man 3. But anyway, no, it's not worse than Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 3 is by far, even from a writing point alone, the worst Spider-Man film. This is a clear 2.5 star, alright Spider-Man film. There's nothing special about this film, but it's there. It's perfectly watchable. Electro is the bad guy, played by Jamie Foxx. He does good at moments when he's actually Electro. His defeat is a little lackluster, where they just kind of overcharge him and he blows up. When he's like the nerd, he's like a ripoff of Batman Forever's Jim Carrey. He doesn't do as good of a job. He's way over top, and he keeps hearing these stupid heavy metal sounding songs in his head that explain what his character's feeling. It's really over the top, and I love heavy metal. It just does. It's so out of place here. He thinks Spider-Man's like his best friend. He's really lonely, and Spider-Man saves him one day, and then later on, Spider-Man doesn't remember his name, and he thinks Spider-Man set him up to get shot by the sniper, even though he didn't, so he's like a paranoid schizophrenic almost. It's really stupid. It just doesn't work. The execution is bad. It doesn't work. And then you got Dane DeHaan playing Harry Osborn, who becomes the Green Goblin. They skip straight past regular Green Goblin, played by Chris Cooper, who just dies. And they go straight to Green Goblin 2, played by Dane DeHaan, which is interesting, a way to do it. And he's got this pretty much goblin disease. He wants to cure it. He thinks Spider-Man's blood can do it, but of course Spider-Man doesn't want to give him his blood, so he thinks it may mess him up even further. He needs more time to study it and, make sure he's not going to create a monster out of it. Of course, Dane DeHaan thinks it's a crock because he's dying, and he ends up taking the spider venom from the spiders who gave Spider-Man his power, inject him into himself. He transforms into this hideous Green Goblin type creature, and he gets on this glider thing. He starts taking revenge on the people who wronged him. He causes the death of Gwen Stacy, which was pretty cool, even though she's going to die. It's extremely telegraphed. It's still really cool that they went that dark. And really sad that she's gone, because Emma Stone was great in these films. Well, this film's a little bit too cutesy with the romance at times, though, but she's still great here. And anyway, she dies, and then you don't even get to see Spider-Man take revenge on Green Goblin, pounding his face in after that. It's just the next scene, the dude's arrested, and they set up straight for a Sinister Six movie to be the next Amazing Spider-Man. And lo and behold, I'll get to it. He watches her graduation speech, Spider-Man does, for Peter Parker, Andrew Garfield, and he gets over her death pretty much, which is really fast, and then he goes straight to being Spider-Man again and fights Paul Giamatti as the Rhino. Paul Giamatti's acting here is way over the top. It's horrible, and I know he was directed to do that, just like Jamie Foxx was, but when he's in the Rhino suit, I actually kind of like the mecha suit, and it ends with him and Spider-Man doing battle. Nice ending. All in all, an alright flick. It was setting up for an Amazing Spider-Man 3 to be a Sinister Six movie, which could have worked, and you see some of the other outfits that would have been for the Sinister Six, like the Dr. Octopus arms and stuff like that. It could have worked. I'm surprised this killed the Amazing Spider-Man franchise. It didn't do horrible in theaters. It underperformed, yes, but didn't do like horrible. They probably should have just done an Amazing Spider-Man 3. I'm surprised they didn't. I know it was probably more to do with like the Andrew Garfield stuff from like, I think it was like the Sony hacks or something, where he said he didn't want nothing to do with Sony no more, or something like that. They just put him in a bad position. They just said, eat it, and just rebooted with Marvel. Anyway, I would have liked the Sinister Six movie. That's what they were building up to. So by just leaving it here, it just kind of ends it off on like a cliffhanger. I know there was like another good 40 or 50 minutes cut out of this film, and this film already feels long. I'm surprised they never did a director's cut of this. Originally, they had Shalane or whatever Woodley from the Divergent movies as Mary Jane, and they had a whole much more stuff with Green Goblin, who is underused here. That could have worked. That would have been interesting to see. I'm surprised they didn't. I get why they took out Mary Jane. They didn't want it to be like, well, that's Peter's rebound girl. He'll be okay. I get why they did that, but at the same time, because they're not continuing this universe, may as well do a director's cut. I don't know why they didn't. The film did fine enough to get a director's cut, and you'd get more money for it. I don't get why they just didn't do a director's cut. But all in all, this is an alright flick. It is pretty weak knowing that they're never going to pick up on these strands, but for the second one in what was going to be a trilogy, this is a easily watchable alright Spider-Man movie. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys again in the next reviews.